What happens to your business when you get sick? Or what if you want to go on a vacation for a few days with your family? If your income stops as soon as you stop working, then you're setting yourself up for burnout. But what if there was a way to automate 80% of your operations and still scale your business to six figures? That's exactly what Kamila Gornia did. She said goodbye to sales calls, posting on social media every day, and constantly selling. Kamila is the founder of Heart Behind Hustle and Evergreen Icon, and she's helped over 25,000 entrepreneurs build sustainable businesses that give them freedom and financial success. With over 2 million in revenue generated for her clients, Kamila knows a thing or two about scaling smart, not hard.
At the same time, in order to have a business, you have to kind of flip that and think about it differently, because the content we're creating that drives sales isn't necessarily the most, sometimes it is, but it's not always the content that's going to be like you're super excited by it or you're super passionate about what you're creating. It has to be content that speaks to the ideal client or customer. It's addressing pain points, solving a problem, whatever that might be.
Today, Kamila will share with us how she stopped burnout in its tracks, built a business on her own terms, and how to automate almost every aspect of your business so you can grow without constantly overworking. Welcome to The Creator's Adventure, where we interview creators from around the world hearing their stories about growing a business. Hey everyone, I'm Brian McAnulty, the founder of Heights Platform. Let's get into it. Hey Kamila, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, my first question for you is, what would you say is the biggest thing either that you did or you are doing that has helped you to achieve the freedom to do what you enjoy?
I think the biggest thing has been letting go of a lot of the actions I thought I needed to do, that a lot of people told me I needed to do, and either letting them go, outsourcing them, or automating or systemizing them.
Yeah, I think that's a powerful one. It's something that I have had to kind of make myself conscious of multiple times in my business. I think especially when you have a business, like for myself, it's a software business, so it's kind of this recurring revenue business. And when you take a step back, it could be something like you go on vacation, but it could also be just like a conscious, like, okay, let me figure out what I should kind of reprioritize here. It's interesting when you notice the things that do and don't change in your business, and like how, okay, I haven't been doing like X, which I thought was maybe important, but like the revenue's not going up or down, customers aren't complaining, or something's not really as important as you thought it was, until you kind of find out from maybe not doing it.
Yeah, I think that, and I don't necessarily know if we're in that era anymore, but we were in the hustle era for so long where
Mm,
it was like just keep doing more and more and more. And I think a part of it was because, I mean, I work with a lot of women, so I know for a lot of women, it's to feel like worthy of success, like I'm putting the work in. I'm also an immigrant, so there was always that mindset of like, I need to feel deserving of the success. So I need to work really, really hard because my parents are working hard and other people I know are working hard. And it's like, I need to prove myself. And I think that for that reason, there, a lot of entrepreneurs too are very multi-passionate. It's like we love what we're doing, so it's easy to fall into the like workaholic type of vibe a little bit too. So being able to consciously choose an easier route can feel, I think, challenging for a lot of people because it's like, does it get to be easier? And a lot of the actions, especially I'll talk to clients who think they need to do, X, Y, and Z. And when we actually look at it, it's like, as you mentioned, like it's not driving revenue. It's just a thing that they're doing because they think they need to be doing it. And they're wasting time on actions that are not really doing anything. Sometimes I actually see, so obviously I teach Evergreen and scaling and like automation and stuff. One of the things I'll see is I'll sometimes see a client that is so into the building of things that she'll
mm,
spend her entire time, like months, building a funnel, making it perfect. But then when it comes to actually like driving traffic, no time at all. It's like not happening. No one knows she exists, but she has a perfect funnel, quote unquote.
mm.
So that's like a perfect example of like, that's not actually the important thing because you don't know if it's going to be effective if you haven't gotten the data from it. So
Yeah, I think that's an example that many in our audience can probably relate to because I have seen way too many times that a creator or entrepreneur is just kind of afraid or not really launching their product. It's the biggest mistake that I've seen people make is like maybe they kind of launch it, but they haven't really truly put it out there and told people about it. And they're sitting on this incredible product, but they haven't gone and tried to promote it.
Yeah.
And so I think as entrepreneurs, especially creative types, we can get really into the weeds of wanting to make everything perfect and enjoying the process of working on building something. And the marketing process is either something we don't understand, we're not as comfortable with, and it seems to be something that is more challenging for some creatives.
Yeah, and I think for creators, like, and I know that was a thing I had to unlearn as well, but as creators, there's this idea of we're creating because we love to create. Like, I want to create this piece of content. I want to make this video. I want to do whatever. And it's coming from a place of like self-expression, which is great. And at the same time, in order to have a business, you have to kind of flip that and think about it differently because the content we're creating that drives sales isn't necessarily the most sometimes it is, but it's not always the content that's going to be like you're super excited by it or you're super passionate about what you're creating. It has to be content that speaks to the ideal client or customer. It's addressing pain points, solving a problem, whatever that might be. And what I'll see too, I was actually speaking to someone the other day, and she was saying how she's been working behind the scenes for 6 months, not building funnels, but she's like, I'm planning out my content so that when I'm ready to launch and put myself out there, I have all this content and it's ready to go. And it's like, okay, but is it the right content? Because I would hate if you spent 6 months of your time creating things that were like nice, but if you have again, if you want to have a business, like you have to make sure that you acknowledge what people are responding to. And a lot of times for people that are like just in creation mode, they're not listening to what people are actually asking for. And then they struggle to get engagement, they struggle to get the sales, and they think it's something wrong with them when in fact they're just not thinking of the right aspect as to why they're putting the content out there.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think it's so important to get that feedback loop going early by just trying something because you don't know.
Yeah.
And like even for me now, like I've helped all these people launch course businesses and everything. And the last time I built some kind of course myself, you would think, okay, well, I know how to do this. I know what I think my audience wants. Like I'm just gonna start making the thing. But I decided to like not think too much about it. I asked my audience and I found things that I know I wouldn't have thought of if I didn't just ask them. But it made it so much easier. And if you don't have the audience yet, just to try one or two little things and find out what resonates because you will find things that you probably didn't expect or anticipate. And then you can learn how to tailor things to that. Because I hate to see when someone puts all that effort in and then they launch it, it doesn't go the way that they want, they're burnt out, maybe they can't continue because they don't have time or money to like keep going anymore. And so it's, I guess, scary, but so much better if you can start putting things out earlier.
Yeah. So something that I teach is like validation, and we like to validate with paid ads. So initially, like let's say that someone started, or maybe they're wanting to create a course or program and they're not sure like what the topic needs to be or what the angle needs to be. You can obviously try to validate it with social media, but for people who have smaller audiences, it's like you're probably not getting that much reach. So any validation you're gonna get, like it's probably not gonna be like confidently validated.
Mm,
So for anyone that's wanting to shortcut that process so that at least you're in a better position, like, okay, people seem to care about this topic more than others. I always recommend running very simple ads. Like, let's see what people are like willing to click on. Like, not even like, is there a freebie? Is there a whatever? Like, let's just see what speaks to people in terms of like, let's say it's just one topic. Let's say it's like weight loss. And there's so many ways to talk about weight loss. There's so many different processes and angles, and like people are not willing to do a lot of things in order to achieve the goal of weight loss, especially nowadays. It's like the longer you're in the industry, the more people have preferences because they've been inundated with so many of the same ways of doing it that they've tried it and they're like, that doesn't work for me. So
mm.
being able to get that out of the way as quickly as possible and knowing, oh, interesting, people are interested in, I don't know, walking for weight loss, or I don't know, whatever the thing is. I always come up with the weirdest ideas and examples, but uh, that just makes it so much faster. So like immediately you can be like, okay, well now let me see if I can create content around that. Okay, cool. Like it is actually people are interested. Maybe it's a little different, and then like you can at least feel like you're not guessing as much when it comes to
Yeah.
creating the products and stuff.
Yeah, I like that. I tend to suggest to like a newer creator to kind of not get into ads because they don't know if they have like there's too many variables. Maybe it's not the ad, maybe it's their whole offer. Like things are not set up yet. Whereas like once they've got the offer, their landing page, all that dialed in, then you can drive traffic to it. But I think what you're suggesting is not necessarily using the ads in that way and spending a ton of money. It's more so just like using it to make sure your content kind of gets enough eyeballs that you can validate it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I am an ads girl, so I always like ads. I think it shortcuts the process, but I totally like resonate with what you're saying too, because it is the like safer route to just create content and like do it organically. But initially, I mean, you can spend as little as like $20 and get all of your ideas validated, and you don't have to create anything on the back end necessarily. It's just literally like, are people willing to, is this interesting enough for people to click on? And like that's all it is. Don't worry about
Yeah.
conversion, don't worry about
So
anything
for
else.
somebody who wants to do this, like, is this kind of content like it's just the same kind of content you would post on social media? Like it's not directing to a landing page or anything, or is it still going to try to get their email or get them to buy?
You can get their email if you want to get, it kind of depends on the level of like experience of the creator. Like if they're
Mm.
brand new and they're like not techie, I try not to intimidate them by like, let's create a landing page. So very simple. Like if they have a website, if they have a whatever, you don't even have to collect their email address. I always like to, just because like if I'm going to spend money, I might as well try to get some email addresses.
Yeah.
But the main thing, it wouldn't be the same as social media, because what works on social media is like reels and there's like more effort. And then the question is like, well, was the lighting bad? What, were you just like really boring? Was the hook wrong? This is less about that. It's more about like, what's the positioning? So if you're thinking about creating an online course or a group program, it's like, okay, what's the idea for that? And really, it's like, what's your process? What's your method? So how to X without Y in even if blank, for example. And
Mm.
coming up with a few different variations. Maybe they're not sure. Maybe it's like, well, I don't know. Maybe it's how to lose 20 pounds in, 6 months without counting macros. Okay, let's try that. Maybe another one is like how to get really fit. Maybe it's about the fit versus losing weight. So you can kind of experiment with a few different ways to communicate it and then just put that out there. Doesn't matter what the page is, but we do want to track clicks to the page regardless, because that's, it kind of creates more of intent. It's not super high intent, but it's higher intent than just engaging with, like passively engaging with a piece of content.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, so you're kind of using it to dial in the result or the outcome that you're
Yeah.
trying to provide somebody and how you're going to communicate that.
Right. Right. Exactly. Yeah. And it's cool because you can track and like test pretty much anything as well. So, you can test the headline, you can test the name of the program, you can test a lot of different things. A lot of times I think the name of the program isn't quite as important, but like you could do it if you wanted to. Like what's going to be the most interesting? You could definitely try that too.
Yeah. So you've helped over 25,000 entrepreneurs. What was the biggest challenge that you faced when scaling your support and being able to kind of help such a large number of people?
Oh, I think for me, I there was only like one time where I felt like I was strapped and I needed more support, because I primarily sell online courses and group programs as well. So my programs are quite streamlined. Like I have the curriculum, I have assessments, assignments, like everything is quite systemized in the program so that I can handle a good amount. I mean, the 25,000 was over a course of years. So it wasn't
Mm.
like at the same time at 20, that probably would be very intense. But as I run my programs, I try to make it very easy for people to take action so that if they have questions, it's not questions that are like, I don't want to say easy to answer, but they're not obvious questions that like they just have to go to the curriculum. Ideally, it's like questions that everyone would benefit from essentially. But there was one time where I don't remember exactly how many people I had in the program, but I I don't know if I didn't necessarily feel strapped, but I wanted to have a little bit more time. And I felt like people in my program would also benefit from having a different perspective. So I hired support coaches. So at a certain level, it's either you want to add a different perspective for your clients or customers, or you simply don't have the energy or the bandwidth to support the quantity of people you have in the program. But being able to bring support coaches, people that are either doing the same exact thing as you are, but they're just trained under you, people that are like, for example, I have a tech concierge in my program now. So I don't like answering questions about tech. I like the
Mm.
strategy, not the like details. So I brought someone in that can just answer the techie, like connect this and then press this button. And it's like, she can deal with that. I don't want to deal with that. And it's an easy, because it's so clear, it's easy to fill that role. And it's just very clear for the clients as well. So that's how I've navigated that. And also keeping in mind, I think a lot of times people think that, you know, if you have 100 people in a program at any given time, active clients, that everyone's actively asking questions every single time. But I often find that the engagement tends to taper off after the first month. So I often run like 3, 6, 12-month programs, just in terms of access. So we always see a little bit of tapering in terms of engagement. So if I onboard 10 new clients in a month, they might all be kind of engaging, but a lot of times even that isn't as intense because everything is so systemized so that when they have a question, it's just easier. So I think it always comes down to being very intentional about how are you onboarding clients, being intentional about what the structure is, making sure the questions are preemptively answered in the curriculum. Like even adding, like if you have a lesson right there, okay, you can always add like a frequently asked questions. Like let's add that right up front instead of having people ask questions and then you have to work more. So some ways I did that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's great. And it's another point to being able to kind of start this early and not getting hung up. Oh, what if I get 25,000 clients right away? What am I going to do? Well, they're not going to be all right away, and you can start to figure out, okay, I got asked this question again and again. I'm going to make sure it's in that lesson in the FAQ. And if you don't have any kind of process starting out, you can start to recognize what that process is for yourself, document it, and then it all becomes easier as you go.
Yeah, and I think that, people sometimes try to get ahead of it and like they kind of put the cart before the horse where they're like, let me think of all the possible things that are going to be happening. And they end up working more, again, trying to be very preemptive about the questions. But it is easier to just wait initially when you first run the program. Like, let's see what is actually confusing for people because sometimes you might over explain something to the level that like people didn't have questions about it to begin with. Like you did a good job the first time. So waiting and then kind of, as you mentioned, like building up that library or that archive of answers, like that's a good way to approach it. But a big way or the big consideration for me, like I've had a lot of people in my community over the years, and it's not just clients, it's customers, it's like, my low ticket things and it's my courses, and a lot of the courses don't have any access, which something that I'm proud of in my business is that I have a pretty high, I don't have the percentage, but a lot of my people end up cross buying other products that I create. So there's a very clear, like a seamless transition of like, you buy this, and then the next step is this, and then you might want to add this other thing to make this better. And it all feels very seamless and not pushy and nothing like that. Like it's very much like optional.
Mm.
But that's, I think, the biggest reason why, yeah, like I've been able to have a lot of transactions without necessarily having to always generate a lot of new customers or new clients because of that repeat or recurring or renewals that I receive in my programs as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point too. And like I like this business overall because you can always adapt, you can always change. And I think newcomers tend to think, oh, I have to make this one course or this one program, and it's gonna like either be nothing or it's gonna be like the best thing ever. And then I make it and I'm done. But the reality is you're going to continuously evolve and try out these different things, figure out what works for you. And also that the people who buy from you, those are the most likely people to spend more money with you and buy again. And often we think, oh, I've got these customers. How do I go get more customers? But the people most likely to buy from you are the people who already bought.
Exactly. And it's so easy, like for anyone that's selling an online course that's just like a DIY self-study, it's so easy to just like add on support or add on a community. I do often see like for the people that are buying a DIY version of any course, the likelihood that they're going to upgrade or renew or buy something else is much lower if there isn't any level of connection. So
Mm.
they are wanting to be led. And because a lot of times when someone just buys a course, what do most people do? Unless it's a very high ticket thing, they're probably not going to open it or they're going to watch like the first module and then they're going to stop. So they'll forget about you. And unless they're actively looking for your emails, you're probably not going to convert that person or have a repeat buyer. So I think being able to add in at least a community or something in there that engages them a little bit more, they're going to be more open to either enrolling in like a higher tier, a VIP tier with access, or buying the next thing, or just it kind of changes and evolves the relationship from just I'm a buyer and now I'm the student to let me become a client. It doesn't have to be complicated, but the relationship changes.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean there even is a relationship in that sense versus like they just buy this quick course, they've never actually interacted with you in some way. So I completely agree with that. Having either community interaction with you, something like that is a really important thing to do. So you talk a lot about automation. You've automated 80% of your business operations. What would you say are some areas of a coaching business that people can easily automate to take kind of that first step towards an evergreen business?
My favorite for the very first step is always client onboarding. So being able to enroll a client, I mean, whether you're doing sales calls or not, I think when the person buys, like the minimum is they get the emails, they get onboarded, they know exactly what's happening, they know exactly how to book the calls so that you can, yeah, you just don't have to waste time between like, well, when is a good time for us to talk? And then what about next week? It's just like not a good use of that client's time, your time. So that would be like
Mm.
step one, onboarding. The second step, I always recommend having email sequences, email automation for, I mean, there's so many varieties and so many different types. So it would probably require me to kind of talk a little bit deeper, but at the very minimum, again, like being able to understand when someone joins your community, your email list, for example, what do they need to know about you? What is your way of thinking so that they can see you as someone that's different from everyone else? A lot of times, what I see people doing is they'll have a freebie or whatever. The person joins the email list and then nothing happens. They just start sending newsletters, which is fine. But what happens is that person kind of feels like I entered into the movie theater in the middle of the movie and it's
Mm.
like, who's who, what's happening, why is everyone crying in the movie? Like, there's something like, I don't know what's going on. So being able to introduce them to it, it's kind of like, instead of movie a movie theater analogy, it's like I'm going into a party and the person, the host is like, oh my gosh, you have to meet, this person, so and so, and then we also do this, and this is the kitchen. You can get the cocktails here. And it makes the person feel special in a sense where they're like, okay, I belong here. So at the very minimum, like a nurture, welcome type of sequence from there. My favorite
Yeah.
thing, however, just to finish on that, okay, two things. And then I'll let you talk. My favorite thing, something that I stopped doing is sales calls, discovery calls. I no longer do them, even though I sell coaching packages, stuff like that. That has been my favorite thing to automate. And I basically created sales call replacements in a sense. So whether that's trainings, specific emails that I send, different pages that I create, depending on what the offer is, to be able to communicate what the offer is, what the problem it solves, like in a very specific way, has been a game changer because to me it was very draining to be on discovery calls and keep hearing from people how they really want to join this thing but they're just going to get in their own way, and I'm not the
Mm.
person to like convince or like I'm just like I can't be like I'm not going to do that. So being able to release that has been massive, gave me a lot of time back. And automating lead generation because I like creating content. I don't like creating content to get something out of that content. Like if I'm
Mm.
creating content because, oh my gosh, I need to get the sale or I need to, like, I hope this goes viral or whatever, it creates so much pressure on the content. So I feel more limited in terms of like my self expression and like all that stuff. So I prefer to see content creation as a way to nurture an audience that has been built through ads. And that way it just feels more, I'm all about like, I just want to feel like more empowered and more like in control or more just like this is enjoyable versus like super stressful.
Yeah, and it's important to feel like that as a solopreneur, like trying to do this yourself for the most part as well, because if you want to be able to really operate the way that you want, apart from just enjoying your life and your and what you're doing, it's important to not always be stressed about, oh, is this going to be this thing? Like everything depends on this piece of content. I want to talk about the not doing sales calls because I think that's something a lot of people would also like to not have to do in a coaching business. So, can you tell a little bit more about like how does that work? How can you keep clients connected and actually get them to convert and buy from you if you're not doing the sales calls?
Yeah, so I always look at it as like, what's the congruent way of selling? So if I'm selling a one-on-one package of some kind, then I will want to talk to the person in some way. I usually won't do a sales call or discovery call, but I might do like a vibe check or something like, let's just jump on a call real quick. Like, you already know what the offer is, but let me just make sure that we're not gonna like hate each other, that we're actually like
Mm.
vibing. So I would
Hmm.
do something like that. And the reason why is because, well, if we're gonna have calls in a one-on-one capacity, we should probably have a call to like, it's a congruent way of selling essentially. When I sell groups or when I sell courses, the congruent thing there, it's there's no reason for me to do a one-on-one call, aka a sales call or discovery call, because there's no one-on-one access in a group program in a course. It just doesn't make any sense. So I always kind of look at it from that perspective. From there, my favorite thing is, and it just depends on the price point, but the biggest thing is every niche is going to have a different price point that makes it easier for people to say yes without a sales call. So if I was selling $10,000 packages without sales calls, it would take me probably a lot more effort to do that because, well, people have to kind of think about it and it's just, they need to be held a little bit more. But for me, I actually lowered my pricing for a lot of my programs. So I used to sell $20,000 group programs, $15,000, different experiences. And my highest priced program is 10,000, but that's the VIP tier. So my highest priced actual program is 5,000. Most of my programs, most of my courses are around like 1,000, 1,500, something like that, which in the business coaching niche is quite of a lower price. So people don't really need to talk to me. They might email me. They might, obviously I'll do like a training or something to explain, like, here's what's different about it. Usually I do either a Google Doc to explain, but it comes down to if somebody has a question, they email me, I answer the question. They might DM me where I can voice message them a little bit and answer questions that way. But because of the price being, I don't want to say appropriate, but the price is easier for people to say yes to without feeling as much of a risk going into it. So it's all about like risk aversion in a sense. It's like,
Mm.
comparing other options and also incorporating like if I'm selling to a cold audience because I like to run ads, this is where, okay, do we need to include additional things to make it even bigger of a yes for people? If $1,000 is a lot for them because they don't trust me, okay, so do we have some kind of a risk reversal in there? Maybe there's a guarantee, maybe there's a money back thing. So if you join and you're like, wow, this girl sucks, you'll get your money back within X amount of time, making sure that's very clear. Are there specific bonuses that you can include that are different from what people typically see? A lot of times, implementation based bonuses can be really helpful for people. So it's not like I'm just learning and I'm going to sit there, which is kind of how most courses tend to be. People at this point are like, I've taken the courses, I still haven't gotten results. Okay, so you can probably incorporate bonuses they haven't seen before that will actually make them feel more safe in making the decision. So it's kind of looking at a lot of that and then just testing it and seeing. I will say that some offers, however, work really well with a cold audience where I don't have to know you. I see the offer, it's so well
Mm.
presented, I'm in. And then other times, the offers are actually better for warm traffic. So they will have to be in my audience for a certain amount of months before I present a specific offer for them to be like, okay, because I already trust you, now I'm ready to actually say yes. So this is why I like, and this is what we talked about, not just having one offer where it's like you're either a yes or a no. If you're a no, goodbye. It's more like, okay, here's this offer. Okay, cool. There's these other things where we can start a client or student relationship and eventually you can be invited into this next thing. So it doesn't always start that way, obviously, because that's a little bit more complex, but it's looking at the intention and who is the actual perfect ideal person for each particular offer. And if someone's been in my audience for a while, they'll buy my $10,000 program without a call because they've bought other things from me. They've been in my other courses and stuff like that. So it's like they don't really need to even talk to me to make that decision a lot of times.
Yeah, exactly. But so then for the most part, the ads that you're running, it's not going to be for the $10,000 program. It's more for like a low ticket offer. And
Yeah.
then they get in your audience, then they kind of ascend through those different programs as they get to know you.
Yeah. That's what I've seen work best. I'm still trying to see if there's any way that we can present the higher ticket sooner. But so far, my best results have been either directly from cold to they join my email list. They see a training of some kind. Then they're presented with a offer for, I don't know, $1,000, maybe a little bit under or over that. And that's like the initial step. Sometimes, which I really like doing low cost to get buyer leads, so low cost offers. So they sign up, and not necessarily always a course, but maybe it's like a little resource or something like that. They buy, the relationship changes from I'm a lurker to I'm a buyer. So they're more likely to pay attention to future things, depending on what that low ticket offer is as well, because psychologically it kind of depends on how they're going to interact with you, if they just got it because they wanted the thing or they got it because they want to know what you have to say about the thing, which there is a big
Mm.
difference with that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I mean for us in my business, it's software for the most part rather than courses now. But like we still realize a lot of our customers, like if they're gonna purchase and subscribe to our software, like deciding, okay, I'm gonna be this course creator, coach, community builder, it's generally not something that unless you're already trying to find a solution for, you're going to see like a Facebook ad and say, "Oh, I'm doing it. I'm subscribing for $1,000 a year or whatever." And so, but there is this massive audience of people who are interested in like becoming a course creator or doing that soon. And so like we don't want to lose those people. And so that's what we have as like our training and our content that way to get people involved. And like the goal is not to really even make money with that, but just to find out like who is these kind of people so we can keep in touch with them. And then when they're ready, they remember us and they're ready to go and buy that. So I think it's similar with a course itself or a program and kind of leading people through that journey. One thing that you reminded me of was I had a conversation with Carrie Jack a couple years ago, and he said as far as like the higher ticket offers, what he did was he had a funnel where basically you could buy everything at once if you wanted to. And so it was presented as like here's the low ticket offer, but then if you buy that, he had these different upsells or order bumps where he would say like, okay, well actually, are you ready to like buy this big package right now? And for a small percentage of people, like they get it from seeing like that one video and they're like, this is the person I need to help me. And they will just go and buy that. And so I think for the most part, it's, and it depends on the offer, of course, it's probably easier to build that relationship and then introduce the higher ticket offer later on. But I haven't tried it myself really in depth, but I'm interested to try it because it could be an interesting thing to like, why delay offering that person like the $5,000 package if they're sitting there like ready to buy it right now, but they don't know you have it.
No, totally
But
good point.
easier said than done. But I think it's interesting.
Yeah, I actually, that's so funny you say that because very recently I saw someone, because I haven't tried that
Mm,
myself, where I'm just like, here you go, here's my big program immediately. I think something to consider there, it's the niche as well, like how saturated is the niche, because
Yep.
And then that's my assumption because I haven't tried this, but I would kind of assume like if people are seeing a lot of options out there, they would be more hesitant to potentially sign up for the big thing if there's a lot of other alternatives that they could consider that are maybe like lower in price. But if it's a very unique mechanism or a different way that they haven't seen before, I could see that working a lot more easily potentially because they're like, well, this is the first time I've seen anything like this, or maybe I haven't seen a lot of other people that look legit. So that might potentially work. But yeah, I saw someone posting somewhere about that where they plugged in. It wasn't a $5,000 program, but it was like upsell one was $1,000 course immediately, and I was like, huh. And it's obviously not a large percentage of people that are buying that, but some people are buying that. So I was like, huh, interesting. Well, you have to be make sure that you're really presenting it very clearly,
Yeah.
because I think it's important to also not harm the relationship that you've started as well. So I work with a lot of women, and women can be like more receptive to like, oh, you're just trying to sell me a lot of times. So if we go a little bit too aggressively with that, it can be off-putting. So it's another thing to test and see how it performs. Really, it's always the best solution.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely feel there is a lot of nuance to it. And I know I've experienced times when like somebody gets me on a sales call or presents something, and I just have this feeling like, oh wow, they wanted all this money right away. And it's because I didn't understand or trust
Right.
really what they were offering yet. Whereas if they got me earlier with that, then I may have not been kind of reacting that way to the price.
Yeah. Gotta love testing.
Yeah, definitely. All right, well, I've got one more question for you. On the show, I like to have every guest ask a question to our audience. So if you could ask our audience anything, whether something you're curious about or just kind of want to get people thinking about, what would that be?
Yeah, I would love to know from you guys who are listening, what would be the biggest game changer if you could automate that particular part of your business?
So, all right, and then Camila, before we get going, where else can people find you online?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram. I am at Heart Behind Hustle, and also heartbehindhustle.com or evergreenicon.com is the other option as well.
All right, thanks so much.
Thank you.